Hi, I'm Simon Ward, and welcome to Building a Resilient Mindset for a Job Hunt in 2022. This is the first in the Best on the Web series. It was meant to be the second. So, those of you who are hoping to join us on Monday for a session with Andrew MacAskill looking at branding on LinkedIn, my apologies yet again for the technical failure. Someone dug through an internet cable in the village next to us and cut out all of our internet for about 24 hours, which took us back to the good old dark ages when there was very little social media or any at all, and we had a bit of peace and quiet. So the first and most important thing to say about today is it's going to be a very informal session. We're lucky enough to be joined by Laura Hampson. I'll tell you a little bit about her in a moment. But the Best on the Web MasterClass series is brought to you by Next Steps. Next Steps is a charitable initiative that has launched earlier this month. 2022 is going to be the year that it begins to establish itself. It's going to start as a community interest company, and then hopefully over the 12 months, we'll take it to full charitable status with the intention of creating a new and unique platform for the delivery of high quality, very detailed job search and career advice, guidance and coaching, coupled with ongoing long-term mentoring. So you'll see a lot about Next Steps over the next few months. It's certainly one of my focuses for this year, and we are using this series of masterclasses just to bring the concept of Next Steps to you. I'm Simon Ward. I've had a lifetime in recruitment. Mum, dad, brother, sister, and now my wife are all recruiters. That's probably all you need to know about me. The way we're going to work, as I say, it's an informal session today. Chat is important. So putting your comments into the chat room, letting us know what you're thinking. If there are questions we can answer, please identify a question with a fire emoji or put it in caps or use any emoji you like, as long as it's not that bald bloke with big ears, because I'll take that personally. But give us those questions. I will happily take notes while Laura is running through the session. This is Laura's session. I'm going to keep monitoring the comments and I will pass on questions. The general view is that we should be able to answer the questions during the session. If for any reason we can't, we will come back and answer those sessions in the group. There is the Best on the Web LinkedIn group. I'll be giving you a link to that at the end of the session. But the most important thing is just to engage, connect with people, let people know that you are happy to engage. And hopefully we'll begin to create a community around the Best on the Web. As I said earlier, really, really grateful and lucky and happy to have Laura here with us today. Oops, sorry, I'm working with the tech as we go. Laura is the founder and director of Laura Hampson Coaching, or Hampson Coaching, and is also the founder of the Wellbeing Support Service. I'm not going to tell you any more about Laura. I'll just leave that to Laura to tell you about herself, and we'll move straight into the session.
Excellent. Thank you, Simon. So I have my own business, and I have two businesses, actually. Founder of the Wellbeing Support Service, which is slightly different to sort of Hampson Coaching. I've basically been doing resilience, well-being, stress management, anxiety, mindfulness, all of that kind of stuff for about 8 years. Professionally, I've had my own business as well for probably about 4 years now. This, I think, is my 4th year. Coach, trainer and workplace mediator. And I set up the Wellbeing Support Service to work with other professionals when I'm not enough for an organisation. So sometimes we go in and I have learning neurodiversity specialist. I have counsellors and coaches, and there's a team rather than just me. Why do I do resilience and well-being and that? It's kind of really crucial, I think, to who we are as human beings. Lots of people talk about what resilience is. It underpins me as an individual. In fact, I've got qualifications. I don't think any of that has really led me to where I am, essentially, other than studying is quite difficult, alongside all the other things I've done. But essentially, it's my experiences in life which has really taught me about resilience and what it really is. And of course, resilience in a nutshell is the ability to bounce back. Now, naturally, human beings are resilient, whether we feel it or not. We wouldn't be here today if we weren't naturally resilient. We have to overcome many things. And we succeed through life, through any challenges, from being very young, just learning to walk, to where we get to today. So it's important to remember that. And when we talk about resilience, we're really talking about actually just that ability to get back fighting, if you like, when we've had some adversity, when we've had some challenges. And lots of that is done through looking after ourselves, creating a good baseline for resilience, and of course, job searching is incredibly hard. And I feel like it's harder now than it ever has been. And I was just sort of reflecting on that before today's session, that in today's society, everything is expected at the click of a finger. You know, we're so used to things being quick and fast and delivered quickly that, you know, when it comes to job searching, I feel like that hasn't gone that same way. That takes so much longer. And even when you're offered a job, it can take many months to get to a place where you then start somewhere. So it takes time. And so keeping up your motivation, your resilience day by day, when you're either unhappy in a job or you're not working at all, can be incredibly difficult. And there are lots of ways to do that. And one of the things I talk about in all of the sessions that I do essentially is a good baseline and awareness and insight. So actually checking in on yourself is kind of the first bit. Finding out right now, and use this time to reflect on where you are in terms of your own resilience and well-being. Because actually, if you're feeling, you know, fatigued, generally tired, you're unable to sleep at night, you know, easily, or you're getting into bed and spending a long time trying to get to sleep, waking up a lot, maybe you're feeling sluggish, you know, quite naturally in January, we all ate a bit too much, didn't we? We all drank a bit too much, potentially, spent a bit too much, and now we're feeling a bit low. And of course, it's just the January blues. They can get us down. But what's normal for you in terms of your own well-being and resilience? We talk about a bit of a awareness about what we need to change. And that can be scary because sometimes we realize there are some things we do need to change, and then it's how do we do that? So creating that baseline, which really will help. And that is also about looking at some of the smaller things that you can do. So we go right back to basics, and we talk about what we really need to do to keep our resilience at a good level. And we talk about water, drinking water. We talk about using your breath to calm you down, giving yourself time for reflection. And we talk about exercise. So if you're doing just 10 minutes exercise a day, that's going to help improve your own well-being. It's going to help produce those endorphins, which give you that energy to then go back to whatever you're doing when we're looking at searching for a job and we're looking to keep ourselves constantly motivated. We also need to think about actually, well, how do you create a habit? How do you make sure that whatever you decide to do today, that turns into a long-term habit, something that you continue to do, you become consistent. And habits are quite easy to form. So they take about 30 to 60 days. And once you've been doing something for 30 days, after that, it's likely that you'll then continue doing that as long as it is helpful to you for a very long time. Of course, bad habits are harder to break, but not impossible. We can break habits actually by replacing them with some really good habits. So one of the things I tell my clients is that actually getting up in the morning and starting your day with a glass of water, bearing in mind we've not had anything to drink for maybe 6-8 hours, we're dehydrated, our brains feel sluggish, you might find it hard to get up in the morning. Let's hydrate quickly. And if you do that every day for 30 days, that becomes a habit. You take a glass of water to bed with you at night time, it's there for you in the morning, ready to rehydrate. I guarantee you'll feel better from doing that. And that starts your day off well. You can certainly have your coffee after, your tea. I have a pint mug of tea after my first pint of water. And then I spend most of the morning on the loo. No, I'm joking. Of course, there are other things you can do. Use your technology to provide some motivation. Most of us look at our phones first thing in the morning. So if we want to start doing something or creating a habit, actually, maybe set a reminder on your phone so that every morning at 6 a.m. it pops up, drink water, or, fill that job application in, or research a particular subject you want to get into. So whatever it is, finding a way to improve your well-being through little habits like that will help. If you think about some of the small things we can do and continue on that path a little bit. We also talk about like 10 minutes walk or 20 minutes walk, something which means that it can be easily fitted into your day. And that for me is hugely important. I'm a mum, I have 3 children, I have a dog, I have a husband, I have my own business, I'm busy. So for me, it's very much about, fitting these things in, making sure I look after myself. One of the other things I want to look at is motivation in itself. Where does that actually come from? So motivation, and there's a psychologist, Hertzberg, who says it's both intrinsic and extrinsic. So what do I mean by that? Some of it comes from within, internal, some things that we can control. We can motivate ourselves from our own beliefs, from things that we can do to satisfy ourselves. And some of those motivations come from external sources. So looking again and thinking about levels of insight, what motivates you? What gets you up in the morning? What gets you to your desk? Now, it might be you feel better with a full face of makeup. You feel better when you've had a shower. Some of these things, they don't have to be big. We can start really small. So important to look at those elements. It's going to be different for everybody. And externally, actually, what are the things that actually help us? So is it calling a particular friend that's going to give us those feel-good factors, those vibes that we want to hear to keep ourselves going? It could be our mum that we speak to, who's always got kindness for us and will cook us a good meal. Whatever it is, again, thinking about keeping a good level of consistent motivation, well-being, resilience is going to be looking at those things, gaining some awareness into what works for you. And again, different for everybody, but thinking about how we can start small as well. There are some warning signs when you are struggling with motivation, when you're struggling with your well-being in general. There's actually a post on my site as well around exhaustion. And of course, if we hit exhaustion, we've really gone past the point of just being fatigued. We really need to stop then and take a good break. And of course, very common at this time of year, but actually being very tired all the time, generally feeling sluggish, a bit like you're walking through fog, very difficult to concentrate, wanting to eat lots of sugary food. Sugar is obviously an addiction as well. So if you've gone through Christmas and you've had a ton of chocolate, you're probably addicted. You want to keep going, stop doing that, and it's going to sort of hit you a little bit for a while. But when we're exhausted, when we're really tired and we're struggling as well, we want to naturally eat more. So worth thinking about that. Might be getting lots of colds, viruses, might be getting dry lips, dry skin in general, a bit like you've been in the air conditioning too long or outside in the cold too long. We also say presenteeism is a sign that, if you're somewhere but not there, if you like. So people are talking around you, but you don't feel part of the conversation, or you're in your own head. That might be a little bit of a warning sign that you're starting to struggle. Yeah, absolutely, Zarina. Fatigue from the pandemic is also taking its toll on people. It is. There's people who've had COVID and got long COVID. There's people who are just fatigued from being inside all day, working at a desk, fatigued from not seeing enough people, not having enough social interaction. Of course, it certainly takes its toll. Not looking forward to anything. Do you have anything to look forward to right now? January, we've had Christmas, we've had the holidays, we've had some time with our families, whatever you celebrate. Now what? It's kind of April, isn't it? Before we have something else to the spring coming. So having something in place that you can look forward to can help improve motivation and actually pull you out of some of those things you feel if you're starting to feel really fatigued as well. What else then? What else is important in terms of building well-being and resilience? So if you've been struggling for a while and you are still there sort of every day, sort of doing everything you possibly can be doing, but you're starting to feel quite low and it's affecting your day-to-day life, you might have gone past the point a little bit. And what I've noticed recently is that lots of people coming to me saying they've actually felt more than low, probably starting to think of having quite interfering thoughts which are affecting their well-being. And of course, if that's been happening, you've probably pushed the point of it being sort of something you can overcome, and it's probably time to go and see your GP. And I would say that if you've been struggling for a good 2 to 3 weeks with feelings of either you've got problems with addiction or you've got some really bad habits that you know are affecting your general well-being, you're starting to feel really low and anxious on a regular basis, it's affecting your day-to-day life, then that's going to be something that you need to get external help from. Simon, you had some questions. Was there anything that you think would be useful right now?
Yes, one of the things I
One.
did want to talk about is a question around the damage or the pressure that comparison with others has, because there's a lot of talk in the job hunting market at the moment about how the market has turned back up and recruiters are making loads of money again. It's all fantastic. But there is what we call the aspiration gap. We see there is a huge gap still between the vast majority or a proportion of the opportunities that exist in the market and the aspirations of individuals in terms of their career or their income or their family life. I mentioned that on a video this morning. And I think it gets harder for job hunters who are long-term job hunters. They fought through last year, and now they're seeing loads and loads of people putting up posts on LinkedIn about the green badge coming off and how fantastic it is I start on Monday. And they don't know the circumstances of that individual. They don't necessarily know what their aspirations were, whether the job they're taking is matching their aspirations. We obviously hope it always does. But I begin to talk to more and more people who are saying that they feel that they are failing not because of their own internal emotions, but because they're constantly comparing themselves with other people.
Yeah, and of course, it's extremely common to kind of look around other people, and we always say everyone's on their own journey. It's very different for everybody, isn't it, around what it is. And I do the same thing. I have for a long time. You compare yourself to the other 37, 38-year-old mums who have their own business, who have jobs, houses that are bigger than mine, what they look like. And it becomes sort of natural almost as a human being to want what somebody else has got. And we forget that we are where we are because of our own experiences. I spoke to a few people recently who I'm talking to about the kind of jobs that they're going for. And they're feeling their confidence knocked because maybe they weren't successful in a recent job, which was maybe lower than what they thought they were capable of. Or maybe they weren't successful for a particular company they wanted to work for. So they've lowered their aspirations. What we do is we go back and we look at the experience that those individuals have actually got, not just in work, but in life, because there's lots of things in life we do that have taught us way more than working has. Just in itself, searching for a job, that it's a full-time job. It's hard hitting the right points. What about all the external research you've done? What about the online courses you've done? What about the experience when, you lost a relative or you helped a neighbor because they were going through a tough time? There are so many things that we forget that are important to mention when we're looking for a job. They're important for our own confidence around where we are. And so people looking for whether they fit the bill actually need to look beyond well, they've worked at a company for 4 years and maybe they didn't do everything that they could have done there. And that helps to kind of knock our confidence more than pushing us forward and looking at certain roles. Of course, the other thing is that there are no longer just project managers. Of course, that job does still exist. But most job titles are very elongated. So we don't even know what they mean. When we say, well, what is it you do? And I think I've probably got one of the easiest job titles. It's really obvious what I do. But a lot of jobs, it's not like that. And we think we can't do it because it's too long or it's too complicated. When you ask what the job actually is, you realize you have got the skills. You have, and you can look back over your experience and go right back to when you left school. Don't just go back 5 years, because you learn way more, throughout your whole life. And think about that as a whole rather than just taking things bit by bit. And I think all of those things together helps to push you up further. But you're right, there is definitely that lack of confidence in society at the moment.
And I think the longer you are stuck in a situation that you're unhappy with, whatever it is, it's being out of work, or it's in a bad relationship, or it's in a bad job, whatever it is, that toxicity begins to build in. You look, social media for me, I hardly ever see a bald bloke on social media. Everyone has hair. It's really upsetting. And I think that a lot, I rest my case, and great new haircut. I think a lot of people put out their best selves on social media. They put out their best selves on LinkedIn, and that's all we get to see. So if you fall into that trap of comparison, comparing yourself with other people, I think it gets very difficult. Certainly for me, I put a post up earlier this week saying that my life kind of changed when I stopped comparing myself with people that other people perceive as my competitors, and actually seeing them more as mentors and guidance and coach and learning from them. And the classic example actually was Andrew, who couldn't make it on Monday, unfortunately. Now, that guy's got 90,000 followers. He's done it in 2 years. I absolutely hate him. Having said that, I have immense respect for what he does. And he's brilliant. And as soon as I stopped comparing myself with Andrew and thinking, well, let's see what he does that's different to me, it got better. And I think that is a problem around comparison. I think that knocks people a lot. I think also we make quite a fuss in the Jobs Lab, and we'll do the same with Next Steps, about the make your bed speech, the importance of early accomplishment in a day. And I'll see that piece, and I'll put a link to the video up in chat after this. But that piece about if you make your bed in the morning first thing, you have accomplished something and you move through on positive footings. I think being able to see accomplishment is important. And although a number of people have asked today if today's session is exclusively for job hunters, it isn't. Resilience is something you should be building in every single step of your life, every mode of your life. And I think that's important. But in job hunting, I don't think you can rely on motivation every day. Now, I don't think you can get out of bed every day going, yep, I'm on it, I'm going to do it. I think sometimes you get up and go, another day. I got rejected yesterday, or I've been ghosted by so-and-so, and you start looking at all those things you can't control, and that's a complete waste of time. But it takes it out, the wind out of your sails, the Bette Midler phrase is the wind beneath my wings or whatever, and you just don't feel good. And that's when we talk about motivation and compare that with actual, what we call habitual effectiveness. So how do you embed habits into your activities, in your life, in your day, so that you are effective whether you feel motivated or not? I'm not who I am. I'm sorry, I'm an expert in my space. I know my lane. But is there a link, and the linkage between motivation, confidence, and effectiveness? Because we see people as the confidence drops, it becomes a downward spiral. Because once they drop, the confidence goes, they perform less effectively, so they get worse results, so their confidence gets even worse, so they perform less effectively, and it just carries on like that. Is there actually a psychological link there at all?
Yeah, and of course, the level of confidence we feel, it's almost a cycle. So if our confidence starts to drop, we start to do less. generally. So we start looking after ourselves less. We feel less worthy of like looking for things that are good for us. We feel less worthy of spending a little bit of time in the bath, doing our hair, having our nails done, whatever we would normally do for ourselves. If our confidence dropped, we stop doing that. We stop dressing nice even. And then that links to us not feeling very motivated because we feel we're not worthy. And then our aspiration drops because we're not, feel like we're trying hard enough, and then our motivation goes. So of course, and I will say I love the video and the make your bed in the morning, which came from somebody in the military who did a speech on it. Absolutely amazing. And from that day, watching that, I don't know how many months ago, I now make my bed every morning, and I love the way it looks. But I also recognize that sometimes we're not morning people. And if you do eat a bar of chocolate in the morning, or 2 or 3 or however many, that actually come lunchtime, you can actually change the tide a little bit. So if you haven't accomplished something in the morning, then it's okay to still have a shower at lunch, have a walk, a shower, and then say, right, let's start my day again. Because sometimes we do wake up feeling lost and demotivated, and maybe we need a bit of time just to chill out and get over what happened yesterday. And then actually it's okay, the day's not ruined. We can change that day in a short amount of time just by doing a small thing, by taking a small step forward.
I think that point from Simone is what a lot of people are experiencing, and where the first thing you do is you check your emails, and suddenly that start of your day is out of your control because you don't know what are in your emails until you open them. Now, if you do something else first, for me, for a long time, it was just getting my dog to take his medicine, which was more complicated than it sounded. But if I managed to get Chips to take his medicine by 6:30 in the morning, when I came out to my shed, I'm in a shed, I felt better, and then 7 to 8 o'clock was more productive. If I'd gone to my emails first before I'd done horrible things to Chips, I think that the rejections would have got to me, and that I would have carried them through, if not for the whole day, certainly those first 2 or 3 hours. I'd been deflated. So my advice to Simone would be, try to take control of that first half an hour, 45 minutes. I work in 45-minute work blocks, or I try to. I've got to be careful about saying that I do this and I do that. I nearly said I make my bed. Then I realized that my wife is actually on the chat and I won't get away with it. So I don't make my bed, but my bed miraculously does get made, and I feel really good about that. It's amazing. I need to correct that particular behavioral failure. But in terms of Simone, my advice would be, first action, let it be something you completely control. So it's writing an email rather than opening an email. It is going and doing something and having those micro process points. Don't make getting a job be your only target of your job hunt, because by definition, you're going to fail every single day until you succeed. And that's where it begins to drag away at your motivation. So have other targets, other small process step targets that you can achieve as you go through it. I think that's really, really important. But as I say, we work on how to job hunt now as much as we work on what is the technical aspects of a good CV or a good LinkedIn profile, because people are getting that. They've been really educated over the last 18 months by some fantastic people. So I think it's about how you work, as well as what you do, working smart, etc., etc. One thing that's playing on my mind, and I think I've probably put a couple of ranty posts up. I'm prone to the odd ranty post. Is there is a lot at the moment about being kind to yourself. Get that. But it's kind of to me, it's a little bit of a thin line between being kind to yourself and being selfish to others. And I've seen posts that go as far as, if a member of your family or a friend isn't supporting, cut them out of your life, get rid of them. That's it. I'd just like to understand your view of, as a resilience and mindset professional, where is there a line that's drawn between selfishness and self-care?
Yeah, I think it is one of those things that we can push over the edge, isn't there? And I see it all the time. You know, I'm almost a bit sick of people saying or telling people to be kind, be more kind, be kind to yourself, be kind to everybody. Don't forget to, you know, go for exercise, drink water. Don't forget to do your neighbour's shopping. Don't forget to ring your mum every day. Don't forget to, okay, everyone calm down. And actually, for me, the line of kindness and selfishness goes with, if you are being kind to your others and it's having a negative impact on somebody else, then it's drawing more towards selfishness. And as a busy mom who works, I have very little time to be kind, if you like, to myself. But there are things that I do that I like. I don't buy coffee, but I buy nice sachet coffee that I then add to my water and add more coffee, and I have a frothy cup of coffee, and it takes 10 minutes. It doesn't impact on anybody. It doesn't make anybody sort of go, well, you know, I'm not sat there when my kids are starving or anything like that. But it's the smaller things we can do. And I think it's perhaps been blown out of proportion a little bit, and people have gone beyond that point. So, you know, a 10, 15 minute, 20-minute walk, who's that going to negatively impact on? Nobody. So it's very much thinking about what's going to work for you, and can you combine some things? Even if you're out on your walk and you see somebody who actually, you say stop, say hello, have a chat with them. Many people don't see people all day because we're working from home or we're elderly or whatever. So that is being kind to yourself, being kind to others as well. There are people who are fundamentally selfish. Of course there are. But not many, I find. Actually, most people are able to recognize that those small things we do for ourselves have a big implication. They have an aggregate effect that help us build our confidence and help the mindset that we have. And we're more likely to be kind to others if we're kind to ourselves. But again, remembering it doesn't negatively impact on other people. That's the line, if you like, that I draw. And I noticed, is resilience and mindset or a set of tasks that you do every day? And a bit of both, really. So the idea that we have, some people have a cup that's half full or half empty. Some people will need to work a little bit harder at having a resilient mind, if you like, or being more positive, because naturally we're sometimes a bit down on ourselves about what could happen. And there's lots of theories around this, but people often say, if I don't expect anything good to happen, and I won't be disappointed. And then there's the other mindset that says, well, if I set my hopes higher, then actually I'm going to get some way to achieving what it is I really want. So we become resilient through everything we experience through life. And that's hard. If you've had like 15, 20 refusals, if you've had, 35 job applications or interviews, and I've been in that situation. I had 21 job interviews before I got my last job, which was about 10 years ago. And it gets tough. And I feel like I only ended up getting that job by chance, actually. But it does feel difficult. But the experience taught me so much that actually sometimes you need to go back and change the way you're doing something or take a break. The other thing I talk about is actually giving yourself time to go and do something fun, because we vastly underestimate the value of our mindset and our motivation and confidence from doing things that are fun, things that we enjoy. And if we're on a particular path, we feel that fun and that joy should be removed for a little while we focus on the thing we're meant to be doing. And of course, our brain, there's two parts to it, isn't there? There's a left and the right side. And when we go off and do something fun, whatever that may be, our brain makes new connections, which means we start to see things differently. So if you are faced with a problem, if you are feeling really low, really demotivated, and you take a break and you go away and do something fun. Now that might be, as Simon has told me, pretending to be a donkey and climbing around the house with your son on your back, going Eeyore. Okay, that might be the thing. Or it might be you phone a friend, or you watch a comedy, or you do something that you know is a bit silly, of course we start to think differently. Maybe you put some music on and dance around a little bit like no one's watching. And I have a little confession to make around that. So I do lots of silly voices, and I do lots of songs that I make up to keep everybody in my house happy, but me mainly. And of course I forget that my husband's upstairs in the room there listening all the time. So he really knows me because of the way that I pretending to be a donkey. It's great. Get on all fours.
That's the wise state.
Is it?
Yeah. No escape from.
No escape. No, exactly. And of course, doing something fun and silly will help to improve the way you see things. It builds vision, it builds motivation. So never forget that element of your life.
I always think that escape element, just going and do something. And Colin was talking earlier about showering your head, which is a phrase Colin used with me, I don't know, about 6-9 months ago, and I now use it every day. I'm almost pretending it's my own. But this idea of just going out and clearing your head. The other thing that helps me also is having something that actually requires a bit of concentration and focus that just isn't what is getting me stressed. So if it's running my business, or it's my 6-year-old Freddie at his worst, which I must admit is happening less and less, which is brilliant. But I want to do something. I can do the escape, and it might be watching an episode of Friends for the 27th time or whatever. It takes no brain power. But I also quite like the idea of an endeavor. So something that does require a bit of focus, just for 20 minutes. So I am learning to play the guitar at the moment for about the 15th time in my life. And this time I think I'm going to crack it. And that's my endeavor. So I try to find 20 minutes a day where I can't do it unless I'm thinking about it. And by thinking about what my left hand is meant to be doing when my right hand's doing something else completely, I find I'm not thinking about my business or what happened to my internet on Monday and whether people will ever talk to me again and all that sort of stuff. So I think that combination of the two helps. There's a lot of talk also, obviously, and this is maybe a little cliched, but the impact of exercise. And I know you talk about water a lot and that overall holistic healthy piece. Is exercise overhyped, or is it really key to building that sort of endorphin rush and going from there?
Well, if anything, it's underrated hugely. The only thing I would say is that when people see or think they have to do exercise to make things better, they think of people. I mean, Joe Wicks is a bad example because he encourages small steps, but they look at Joe Wicks, who is like the picture of health and fitness, and he spends all day, every day exercising because that's his job. But what actually to create endorphins in the brain and to make us have more energy, we don't need to do a lot of exercise. We need to commit to going outside and walking for 10 minutes will feel better. So the impact on our mental and physical health from doing something relatively small is huge and vastly underrated. But because you don't need to do an hour spin class, it's great if you can, but you don't need to. You don't need to do an 8-mile run, but ideally you need to do something every day. It might be stretching, it might be yoga, it might be dancing, whatever you find that works for you, really.
One other thing that I've been asked a number of times, and certainly has been on my mind a number of times over the last 18 months, is when you are engaged with someone, what are the signs that this is someone who is struggling a bit, and with support and help they're going to be fine? Are there any, and there may not be any, sort of like giveaway telltale signs that actually this person is in a place where they may need help beyond your capability? They may need professional help. I've always worried that I either don't give support when I should, I start thinking it's a professional issue when it just isn't clinical yet, and that pushes people further away. I just wonder how do you because I think the whole, and I've learned this from a lady called Suzanne Penny, the importance of community and group and interaction has never been greater than it is in the last 18 months, 2 years, and that's generally not just job hunting. But are there signs that you're actually, I want to support you, but you probably need to move somewhere else or someone else?
Yeah, it's certainly. I feel I have a bit of a one up, but I have an intuition usually when clients come to me and they need a bit more, if you like, and I can sort of see that what they're asking for is me to fix them rather than them help themselves. So what they kind of need more of is somebody to go in there with more in-depth support. And I'm a very, so what are you going to do about your current situation? Let's talk about that. And if they don't know, or they're struggling to talk, or they're very tearful, or perhaps a bit standoffish, I'm that for me is a huge warning sign that what they need is more. And I think I can sort of gauge the way people speak. So what does the next 12 months look like? And if there isn't anything there and they don't want to talk that far ahead, again, big warning sign for me that I'm not potentially the right person to support them through whatever they're going through. From a personal point of view, I think if you can recognize that you have been feeling low for a good couple of weeks, you've sort of started turning your phone off, you sort of stopped interacting with people as much, you're very, very tired, but you can't sleep, you're starting to get aches and pains where you wouldn't normally for no reason. And you can almost feel it. I talk from experience, and you can feel this pain, but you don't know what to do about it. And if it's the first time, then that can be really difficult, but important to recognize and get some help. A lot of what I've noticed recently as well is alcohol consumption has hugely increased within almost every age group that I work with. Something that I've never really spoken much about. My dad's an alcoholic. Alcoholism runs in the family, so I know quite a bit about it. But for me, it's worrying that we're seeing this huge rise. And of course, if you're at home lonely, lots of people started drinking more during the pandemic because of boredom, and then that goes on and on, doesn't it? So I think things like addiction, where again it's that you've filled a space and it hasn't gone away, then they're going to need some more help.
Okay. One thing you mentioned 2 or 3 times there was withdrawing, not engaging with people. Obviously, the last 2 years has created an environment of isolation. What I see with a lot of the people that I work with is that there is the isolation you can't control during lockdown or whatever, and the government have put in rules at different times that have guaranteed our isolation, but there are still mechanisms to engage. But even when those regulations aren't there, I find people who are struggling actually find excuses not to engage with people. So suddenly a crossword will become the reason to never talk to someone ever again. Or they've heard that someone has done something, that'll do. I don't have to talk to them again. How important is just maintaining that engagement? And we have some people in our little village who have become particularly isolated during lockdown because their families are a long way away, or they're quite elderly. And I think there are people in our village who work hard to try to avoid that and help those people. How important is just putting the effort and the time? We talk about the habit of engaging with people and forcing yourself to do that.
Yeah, it's fundamental to who we are as human beings. We're not meant to be isolated. We're not meant to be on our own. And of course, there are forms of punishment that are called isolation. So by that very term, it's not natural for us to be isolated, to not have any social interaction. So whatever way you can force yourself, you can create some interaction on a regular basis. And if I haven't spoken to somebody all morning, I'll just sit and look through my phone book and find someone to talk to. And I just pick the phone up and say, how are you? And usually they just talk. So I don't really need to do anything, even if I'm struggling. There is that correlation, as your wife puts it, between actually working with other individuals as well and finding that what is good about them, what works for them. There's always an excuse, I think, to phone somebody, even if it's to see how they are. You don't need to talk about yourself. So as part of a daily routine, talk to somebody every day. Find a question to ask someone and ask them, ring them and ask them. If you don't want to speak to anybody, just, a job that you ring HR, ask them something, that you might be interested in, or, there's lots of places as well you can go, of course. So even going to the library, there's people in there notoriously known for being quiet, but usually the receptionists are very friendly and talk to you a lot. So fundamental for who you are.
And I think when I've been at my lowest, and that now and again over time that happens, and I've made the effort to connect with someone, I've always felt a little bit of am I being a victim here? Am I the guy who no one's engaging with? And then you take that step, and suddenly they're so glad to have heard from you, because they're sitting there thinking, feeling a bit isolated, wondering when they're going to pick up the phone, they're going to initiate a discussion. And I think again, it's this thing about comparison, and we always think everyone's happier and everyone's more engaged and less isolated than us. I'm conscious we're coming up to this has been fantastic. I just want to say thank you in case I forget later, Laura. This has been brilliant, and I've learned a lot, and I hope others have. I'm conscious that we're coming up to about 45 minutes now. And last time that you were with us, back in July or August time, you did a mindfulness exercise towards the end of that session.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be because so I'm one of those sort of pretty uninvolved blokes. I'm trying so hard, but I'm not the most evolved bloke in the world. And I sort of went, mindfulness exercise. Inside, didn't let you know. Inside, I was thinking that, and it was absolutely brilliant, and it worked for me. I was wondering if you have time and if you'd be happy to do that today, because it works so well.
Absolutely. And just to share really that mindfulness is something that I've grown into. Of course, most people, I don't say most people, some people hear mindfulness and sort of go, oh, I've tried it before, I don't like it, or I can't stop thinking. And that it can be really difficult to get into the right headspace, and almost feeling like you need to do it for a long period of time as well. And of course, it's not that. The first time I experienced mindfulness was a good 10 years ago. I think I was going through my divorce with my ex-husband. I was not in a good place. There was a man in the front of the room with sandals on and socks, and he told me to close my eyes in front of everyone, and it wasn't happening for me. But as time went on, I sort of linked mindfulness to what I already did and then what I've continued to do. So being mindful in my day helps. So when I'm a multitasking person and I'm always doing something else at the same time, but actually mindfulness in itself really is about being in that moment, but only just in that moment. That was my dog. And he really just wants to say hello with everything that I do. And being there in the moment. So when you're having a conversation, just having that conversation. When you're eating your breakfast, focus on eating your breakfast. Try to eliminate some of those other things that are going on in your head, so that you're giving your head space to just be. And it is, as John says there, it's so powerful. So I'm going to go through just a little mindfulness exercise now. And then if you have any questions, there'll be just a little bit of time afterwards. So just to invite you now, a reminder that it's a basic human ability to be fully present, aware of where you are and what you're doing, and not overly reactive or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. So it begins and ends in the body. It involves taking time to pay attention to where we are and what's going on. And it starts with being aware of our body. So if I could ask you to close your eyes or bring your gaze down until your head is resting gently forward. And start by taking some deep breaths in and out. try to notice the breath entering and leaving your body. If you can, try to slow your breathing down just a little bit. Now allow yourself to feel completely relaxed, so that each of your limbs sort of hang, sort of feel heavy. Try to notice any tension that might be in your body. And if we start down at our feet, we're going to slowly work our way up our bodies and check in on each part of our body to consider, actually, is there any tension there? If we work our way up our legs, up into our upper legs, knees, often we get tension or aches there. Maybe it's our stomach. Maybe we have digestive problems from stress. Can we just relax into that breath and feel the benefit of doing that? You notice our arms and our fingers. Just stretch and open and close those hands. And work your way up to your shoulders, your neck, and often the place where we feel the most tension in our back, our upper back, our neck and our head. You might feel like you have weary eyes, tired eyes. Remember, we're still breathing in and out, nice and slowly, and allowing that tension to just melt away. And just allow yourself to feel completely relaxed. Imagine now that you are on the grassy bank. You can feel the warm grass, and the sun is beating down, warming you to just the right temperature for you. There's a stream, and you can just hear the water slowly flowing past. You'll notice that there's a little pebble beside you. If you pick that up and throw it into the stream, you'll notice when it hits the water how the ripples flow out and the stone sinks to the bottom and the water becomes still, flowing at its normal pace again. And continue to breathe deeply and rhythmically. Just enjoy this moment just for you. And if a thought enters your head, consider a cloud passing by in a windy day. Just pop that thought into the cloud and let it go past. You can't stop these thoughts. You can let them pass until we're ready to think about them. And when you feel able to come back to the group, slowly allow your consciousness to come back. Open your eyes. I hope you felt some benefit from the mindfulness. and that was about 5 minutes. You can shorten that activity, so it just takes 2 minutes. Any amount of time is good, or you can lengthen that activity if it's bedtime and you just want to completely relax into that space.
Laura, thank you very much. I actually feel calmer in 5 minutes. I'm for people who are watching. There will be a recording of this whole session. It will be both on my profile, but also on the event page. I'm going to go back and visit and just play that probably every morning. Just that 5 minutes. It was fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. If anyone has any more questions, one of the interesting things was during during that exercise, the chat went completely and utterly silent. So everyone was engaging, which was fantastic. I'm very grateful for that. I understand there may have been some problems early on with some people who weren't able to get onto the broadcast. We're struggling a little bit with the new LinkedIn event format, and I'm sure the error was my fault, no one else's. I need to try to get better at it, so I apologise for that. There are more events coming up, but as we come up towards the hour, if anyone has any questions and they'd like to ask them now, I'll keep an eye on the chat and we'll make the most of this last few minutes. But while we're waiting to see if any questions come in, I just want to thank everyone for coming along and being a part of the Best on the Web Masterclass series. You'll see it's a very diverse agenda as we move through the 36 events. It's not just LinkedIn CV interview, LinkedIn CV interview. We're looking at the more holistic, broader view of, particularly for job hunters. That's our lane. We're not ashamed of that. We're also doing our Through the Looking Glass series, so we'll be talking to people the other side of the desk, the other side of a CV application or a job application or a CV, so that we can have people who actually are making those decisions about what we do, rather than people like me who just talk a lot about how those decisions are made. So we'll be doing that. And on Friday, there is a session called How to Get Stuff Done. And one of the big challenges that we find among job hunters is actually just having that process, that structure, that system, the ability to focus, the ability to prioritize and get the right stuff done at the right time. That's what that session's about. But let me just go straight to this question from Charanjit. What's the one thing that's very important for building resilience, Laura?
Good question to end on, isn't it? With just a few minutes left, and really, I think consistency in what you do, but recognizing that consistency can be over a longer period of time. So if we commit to going walking every day, and then we don't go for 2 days, that actually it's okay, and that we then start walking again. So that actually what we do is consistent, but it's okay if we sometimes don't do it, if you like. It makes sense. So being consistent with whatever we decide to do, probably because you asked for one thing, I'm going to give you one more, a bonus thing, if you like. But actually thinking about doing the thing that scares you, and taking those chances, and not saying no to some of the opportunities, because lots of things we shy away from because we don't feel like we have the experience, we don't think we are ready, perhaps we won't know what to do. And a bit like when we ask somebody if they're struggling, or if somebody needs our help, what do we say then? And of course, just do it. Just keep doing those things, even if you're a bit scared by them, because it's those very experiences that we're not quite sure about sometimes that will do the most for our resilience.
I think that's a really big, good and important point, particularly in job hunting. So, once you've made your bed, or you've fed your dog, or whatever it is that you're doing that makes you get to your desk first thing in the morning feeling on a high, you've accomplished something. We always say, do the hardest thing first. So while you're there, you've just accomplished something. Your first 40, we work in 45-minute work blocks. So your first 45-minute work block is the thing that you are dreading doing the most. Get it done, and then you're on the roll. Not only have you had an accomplishment before you got to your desk, you've taken on that hardest thing. You've done it. It's out of the way. You've achieved it. You've accomplished it. So I think that's true. And as that spiral of confidence and it does begin to just slowly eat away at your willingness to take risks. And the number of times I talk to job hunters who are talking about a role that they're 80% qualified for, but because they're not 110% qualified for it, and it's not at the end of their street, and the company isn't on their list of top 10 employers, they don't think they can do it. But that's a whole different session. That's imposter syndrome, and it's all that piece. And we'll ask Laura to come back and talk to us about that as well at some later date.
Yes, look forward to that.
We're just coming up to the hour. I just want to say it again. Thank you to everyone who's given us our time today. I will be putting up a few links both on the event page. Clearly, I haven't sorted out the event page properly. Otherwise, you'd have seen this broadcast there rather than on my own profile. But you've all been there. So I will put up links to videos. I will put up links to the event page for Friday, 1 o'clock, Serena Ward, how to get stuff done. You'll be amazed. I've had 25 years of working with, watching both close up and from a distance, the ability to prioritize, focus, and get stuff done. And that will be a very practical session, 1 o'clock on Friday. Within the group, I will also, if I know you used to be able to do this, hopefully you still can. And Colin, who commented earlier, will be beating me up, making sure I do it, which I'm very grateful for. That we'll also be putting a survey on. We want to learn. This is the first of 36 events. We want to learn how to make this as valuable as possible for you. Were there things we could have done before the event? Were there things we could have done at the start of the event to make sure you saw the event where you thought you were going to see it? That kind of thing. But any ideas, and use the event link, use the event site. It will be useful for some time, and it will be live for some time. But also there is the Best on the Web group, which is an ongoing, that will stay open forever, I hope, and hopefully is a place where people can talk to each other and we can share experiences. Because whatever people like me, job coaches, think, we are only exploring and sharing our opinions, and everyone's opinion is valid. So we really like it when you tell us about an experience or an opinion that you have on a CV, on LinkedIn, on interviewing, on whatever it is. So let's get that conversation going and let's start talking to each other. Let's engage. Let's break this cycle, this spiral of isolation. And maybe the Best on the Web MasterClass is a series, is a possibility, is a platform to do that. So once again, Laura, thank you very, very much indeed. Hope I'll see some of you at 1 o'clock on Friday with Serena Ward's How to Get Stuff Done. In the meantime, just thank you to everyone. I've really enjoyed it, and apologies for the technical problems at the start. We're getting better at this. We actually ran it. Laura, thank you very much, and goodbye, everybody.
Bye.